You might not have thought about it this way, but you're a philosopher. You became one the first time you looked around the world and started asking questions, trying to understand what was going on. Anytime you're pursuing understanding, you're engaging in being a philosopher. You look at any little kid running around, they're asking questions, trying to understand what's going on. I mean, I got little nieces and nephews, and their favorite thing to do is ask why. I mean, that's the Socratic method right there. It's this very innate, readily available aspect of being a human. And I think it's really tragic that most people, we either don't identify with doing that, we don't think of ourselves as being philosophers, but so long as you're engaged in trying to understand the world around you, you're asking questions, that is the practice of philosophy. I mean, kind of simply put, obviously the name just means a lover of wisdom, but I think it's a little more than that. I think it's a desire to gain wisdom. It's a desire to gain understanding. And I think people are doing that all the time. We're questioning and trying to learn and trying to gain a better understanding of reality and how to best engage with it. I think it's tragic. It's a little sad when the idea of being a philosopher gets framed as something that only belongs to people with like a turtleneck and a sport coat, and they get a degree in it. But philosophy it's messy and dirty, and it's primal. It's really primal, and it's base, and it's, like I said, it's something innate within us that we're kind of born already doing, already trying to pursue understanding. And you'll be a philosopher, so long as you continue to ask questions and try to understand things. The death of philosophy comes from anybody or anytime you've kind of maybe planted your stake in the ground and you've decided that you're not gonna ask questions anymore, but instead just fight for opinions, fight for assumptions, try to defend a sense of certainty rather than operate from a position of humility and say, hey, I don't know, I don't understand. I need to gain more insight. I need to gain more understanding. And I would like to see more of that. It's disheartening to me when you're trying to talk to people. And maybe you're asking questions or trying to engage with something a little bit more abstract, and people shy away from that. Maybe they think they're not capable of exploring that, or they don't realize that it would benefit them to engage with that, because not only is everybody doing the work of philosophy when you're asking the questions and pursuing understanding, like I mentioned, but everything we do in life, all our actions are downstream from a philosophical worldview. I mean, everything we do comes from what we believe to be true about reality. And that all stems from whatever our own personal philosophy of life is. Even if you want to say that you don't believe in any meaning, nothing matters, it's all just material pursuit, sense pleasure pursuit. It's like, okay, that's hedonic nihilism. That's a philosophical position. I mean, even to operate with a sense of certainty and try to defend what you have assumed to be true or what you want to be true, that is an ontological position. That's an epistemological position, which is really just to say that it's a position based on what you believe can be known about reality and what you know about reality. And I don't think it's doing anybody any kind of service when people try to dress these things up as more esoteric or complex than they need to be. Like I said, you don't need a degree in this or some bunch of titles behind your name, and you certainly don't need a bunch of crystals and beads and white guy dreadlocks in order to do the work of philosophy. As long as you're exploring life, you're trying to understand, and you're doing it honestly, mostly honestly with yourself, that's the work of philosophy. And it's at maybe in a more pernicious assumption. Maybe if I'm going to subscribe some sort of malintent to this pattern I'm seeing, I would assume that maybe we're being conditioned to divorce ourselves from the awareness of the fact that we do participate in philosophy, we're sort of yielding that power. We're getting rid of that. We're surrendering that out, because coming back to what I said about everybody operates from a position of philosophy, if you're not aware of what you hold to be true, then you're going to get programmed with something. All right, everybody's operating from a philosophical position, and if you're not working on your own, you're working on something that somebody else gave you. And so I wonder sometimes if that's by design or if that's just human nature. You know, we're told kind of what to think, what is true, what's foolish, what's stupid, and we just go, okay, all right, and we just march forward in life. Sometimes it's not even out of a sense of laziness or anything like that. It's literally just responsibilities start hitting, problems start hitting, the day-to-day grind starts hitting, and we don't always have a chance to step back and breathe and think through things. And I think often, in a lot of ways, philosophy has gotten hijacked over the last 100, 200 years, again, by career philosophers, career thinkers, by the academic side of philosophy, so much so that there is a lot of speculation without any sort of action. That's why I think when you look back, a lot of the best philosophy we have from antiquity comes from people who were living life. They were wrestlers or martial artists or people that had doctors, kings, whatever, people that actually did something other than just think. They actually lived life, and they understood there are consequences to what people think. And so their philosophy came from a position of reality. There was sort of this pragmatic filter that everything they believed kind of had to get pushed through. If you do something like read Art of War, anything like that, you'll see that very clearly. You know, there's a practical reality that comes through that. That's why I think the practice of martial arts, jujitsu, whatever, it will condition you to not just speculate about what could be or what's possible, but also realize that we don't have an infinite amount of time. We don't have an infinite amount of resources or hours in the day. And so at a certain point, we have to get to a position with our philosophy that zeroes in on something practical and zeroes in on actions we can actually take and helps guide us forwards. So just encourage everybody to remember that you've been doing this your whole life. You've been philosophizing, and some of y'all longer than you've been walking. You know, you learn how to eat and cry and walk around and ask questions. That's one of the first half dozen things we're capable of as people, is question the world. So never stop questioning, never stop pursuing. And if there's anything you've learned recently that kind of blew your mind, I'd love to hear about it.